Welcome to the Dale Lolley Show here on the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. And, plenty of Steelers news as Omar Khan spoke to reporters today for the first time at this training camp, probably be the only time at this training camp. And, of course, as you can imagine, a lot of the questions centered on what's going on with the situation with Diontae Johnson. And Omar saying, conversations with Diontae and his representatives are going to stay between us. We won't discuss them publicly, but we've been in conversations. And of course, this comes after the Steelers extend Chris Boswell, giving him a 4-year, $20 million contract extension that will keep him in Pittsburgh the next 5 seasons. Diontae would appear to be the next guy up in that situation. And, of course, he's still not practicing, although I did note in my live file on Tuesday that Diontae Johnson did have pads on today, also had his football shoes on today, his Steeler football shoes, the black and gold ones. He had been wearing some green shoes that probably were more kind of suited for him to do some light work going to the spikes today, but still not practicing. He said, Omar Khan said, you want everyone out practicing, but we've taken the approach and we're using it as an opportunity to look at the other guys that are practicing, get them some good work. I can say we want Diontae. We're excited to have Diontae as part of this team. We hope he's going to be a Steeler for a long time. And I'm sure that's not what the people who are trying to – here's what I don't get, folks. You may not think that Diontae Johnson is worth $25 million. And, in the grand scheme of things, he probably isn't. If you look at the contract values in the league right now, the guys who are making the most in terms of average this year, it's Tyreek Hill at $30 million, Devontae Adams at 28, DeAndre Hopkins at 27.25, Cooper Kupp at 26.7, A.J. Brown at 25, who was in Diontae Johnson's draft class, Stephon Diggs at 24, DK Metcalf, who was in Diontae Johnson's draft class at $24 million, Deebo Samuel at 23.85, who was in Diontae Johnson's draft class. Terry McLaurin at 22.78, who was in Diontae Johnson's draft class. DJ Moore at 20.628. Then Keenan Allen at 20.25. Amari Cooper at $20 million. Chris Godwin at $20 million. Mike Williams at $20 million. And those are the guys making an average of more than $20 million per year. Then you get the Brandon Cooks, Michael Thomas, Christian Kirk, some other guys making, 19.8, 19.25, and then $18 million per year. Christian Kirk and Kenny Golladay are both making $18 million on average after signing their deals. And Golladay signed his deal last year. I'm here to tell you right now, of the receivers I just mentioned on there, Johnson's better than a bunch of those. And some Steeler fans have tried to talk themselves into thinking that he's not. Well, he drops the football. He does this, he does that. You know who led the league in drops last year? Keenan Allen. Making $20.25 million. $20.025 million last year. Because they get targeted a lot. The more targets you get, the more drops you're going to have. And drops were not a major issue last year for Diontae Johnson. Diontae Johnson had 107 catches last year. And I've heard people, well, he doesn't make the special plays some of those other guys make. Is that his fault? Or was that on Ben Roethlisberger? I've seen Diontae Johnson make plenty of special plays. I just have. I don't know what you're talking about when you say that Diontae Johnson isn't a special receiver, because the numbers, and I'm not talking about the catch numbers. If you look at the numbers in terms of guys who win against press coverage, Diontae Johnson's in the top 3 in the league in that, winning against press coverage. That's why he gets the kind of targets that he gets, because he's always open. He's the one guy on this roster who I know can get open against press coverage. Everybody loves George Pickens, and I get it. He's looked good in training camp thus far. But he hasn't done that yet in the NFL against a number 1 cornerback, gone out and gotten open against press coverage. And I can tell you, I did a radio show on Monday night with former Steelers defensive backs coach Tom Bradley, who knows a little bit of something about number 1 wide receivers. And he said, we talked off mic, Diontae Johnson's the number 1 receiver in the NFL. Now, he may not be the number 1 receiver in the NFL, but he's certainly in the top 15. He's better than Amari Cooper, folks. Amari Cooper's making $20 million a year from the Browns this year. You can talk about whether that's a good or a bad contract. Diontae Johnson is better than Amari Cooper. If you offered any team in the league, Amari Cooper or Diontae Johnson, they're going to take Diontae Johnson. Period. That's a fact. Well, it's my opinion, but it's pretty much a fact. And you'll find that out. If the Steelers don't pay Diontae Johnson in this offseason, you'll find out exactly what Diontae Johnson is worth, because he's going to go in the open market and he's going to make $22 million a year on the open market. I guarantee it. That's what he'll get, because that's the kind of receiver he is. He's that good. And so he also works his butt off. I know people are upset about the hold in right now, but he's just taking the only path that's given to him right now to get a contract. He didn't come up with this hold in thing. TJ Watt did it last year. Minkah Fitzpatrick did it in minicamp this year. They got new deals. Other guys have done it around the league and gotten new deals. The Steelers want Diontae Johnson for the long term. That doesn't mean that they're going to cave and give him $24 million, but we don't even know that he's asking for that kind of money. Now, one thing that Omar Khan did say was that, certainly the Metcalf and Samuel contracts, which were just done this past week, certainly come into the conversation when he's speaking with the agent for Diontae Johnson. Again, Metcalf at $24 million, Deebo Samuel at $23.85, Terry McLaurin at $22.78. Those are his contemporaries. Those are the guys you measure him against. And here's the thing. So if you look at receptions from the 2019 draft class, Diontae Johnson leads the way with 254. That's 32 more receptions than the next closest guy, who's Terry McLaurin. He's fourth in yards among that group with 2,764. That's behind Metcalf, McLaurin, and A.J. Brown, who's making $25 million. He's fourth in touchdowns among that group. That's behind Metcalf, A.J. Brown, and Marquise Brown, who was a first-round draft pick that year. So let's not trash the player when we're talking about Diontae Johnson. He's been a very, very good football player for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I might note, he did that. That counts as rookie season when he was playing with Devlin Hodges and Mason Rudolph at quarterback for most of that season. And he still leads all rookies, all players from that draft class in receptions by a lot, because he's demanded those kind of targets. So let's not trash the player. He's taking a path because he wants to be a Steeler. He's trying to get a long-term contract done with this football team, using what the CBA allows him to do. And if Diontae Johnson signs a long-term extension with the Steelers, everybody's going to be back on the bandwagon and say, oh, Diontae Johnson's great. Well, don't talk out of both sides of your mouth. Either he's good or he's not. And I believed all along that he's a good player. Drops are going to happen. Now, would you like to see fewer drops? Absolutely. And some of his drops have come in bunches. But he's been a very solid football player for the Pittsburgh Steelers in his first 3 seasons. He's been all-pro as a return guy, and he's made the Pro Bowl. There's nothing wrong with that. And he hasn't done it in a me-first kind of way. He hasn't been Antonio Brown. So, let's back off on the criticisms of Diontae Johnson. Let this thing play out. The Steelers are going to make their offer. He's either going to accept it or not. There'll be some back and forth. It could still get done. Let's wait and see if that happens. I'm Dale Lolley. I'm going to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about what Omar Khan had to say. Maybe talk a little bit about the quarterback situation in practice. We'll do that when we return right after this on the Dale Lolley Show here on the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. Welcome back. I'm Dale Lolley here on the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. And as I mentioned, Omar Khan speaking to reporters today, talking about some different situations around the league and with his team. And he said, look, he really isn't going to read too much into the quarterback situation, much the same way that Mike Tomlin has approached this. Doesn't make it easy. You want to live and die on every throw. And that's all part of it, but they still feel good about their quarterback room. The key is what you have to remember with the quarterbacks right now. Mitch Trubisky has not looked great at this training camp, but let's remember he's working against a Steelers defense that's pretty good against the pass. They can bring a good pass rush against you, and he's doing so without Diontae Johnson. He's done so the last few days without Chase Claypool and Pat Freiermuth as well. And then Tuesday, no Najee Harris as well, because he's dealing with a little bit of a foot issue. So, yeah, it's going to look rough at times for that first unit, going against what's I think is going to be a pretty good defense this year. Mitch Trubisky not getting a ton of time to step up and make plays and throw the football. The Steelers were doing some third down stuff today, and the defense was blitzing like crazy, constantly sending a couple extra guys, because they want that offensive line working on picking those kind of things up in pads. It's really the first time that they've done that. And so Trubisky struggled in that situation. He was 0 for 4 through an interception. And I don't know if the interception was necessarily his fault, because I saw Frisman Jackson talking to Anthony Miller after the pass, and maybe he should have run his route just a little deeper. And those are the things that you don't know. I know everybody's going to focus on, Mitch Trubisky doesn't look good. He looked at this, that, the other thing. I can tell you this. Kenny Pickett's looked better working with the twos than he did with the threes, because that second team offensive line is probably a little bit better. There's a lot more experience on that second team offensive line than there is on than the defensive line, perhaps. Isn't quite as good. The second team defensive line isn't quite as good as the second team offensive line. So he had a little bit more time. Now he's had some rough patches as well. Still not seeing those blitzers coming and getting rid of the football, but he's getting better at that stuff. And I saw him check out of a play today. It was a run play, and I think it was supposed to go to the right. The Steelers went into motion and motioned the tight ends in tight, and the defense overloaded that side, and Pickett checked out of it and ran a play to the opposite side, to the weak side. And Jaylen Warren, who's had a nice camp thus far, picked up a nice run on that one. So that was a good spot by Kenny Pickett, and that shows some progress. But the throwing of the football, that's still been a bit of an issue at times for all the quarterbacks. Mason Rudolph continues to look like the best of the group right now, and now he's working against the three, so he should. He's a veteran quarterback, knows where the ball's supposed to go and gets it out quickly. So it's going to continue to be an interesting battle. Again, the job is Mitch Trubisky's to lose. That's not a surprise to anybody. He's taken every first team snap thus far in this training camp, and I don't know that I expect that to change dramatically. There may be a week in there where they give Pickett a chance, but I don't think so, because they're getting Mitch Trubisky ready to start the season, and they have to continue to keep him working. But I'm not going to put too much weight on this right now until we see Diontae Johnson out there, Chase Claypool out there, Pat Freiermuth out there, Najee Harris all out there together, because let's face it, we can like the young receivers as much as we want. They're still young receivers. And it's fine if you have just one of those guys out there. But right now they've got, both Calvin Austin and George Pickens out there, along with Anthony Miller. I mean, that's basically been their top three throughout this camp because of the injuries and the sit-in for the other guys. And then you get Zach Gentry as your number one tight end. And so, and today it was Benny Snell as your number one running back. Yeah, the offense is not going to look great in that situation. The defense is going to be ahead of them. That's just a natural progression of things. That's going to do it for today's Dale Lolley Show. You've been listening here on the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. I'm your host, Dale Lolley. I'll be back again tomorrow. We'll talk to you then.